Well, sat opposite us is someone who we've been talking to very, very often through the last couple of months. Leigh Burns from Lacuna. The vision behind it, the steering wheel has been yours since the get-go. Welcome to the show. And I suppose I would just want to welcome you by thanking you for supporting what we've done through our Women's Daily shows, which were a huge success for us. And it's been so brilliant being able to tell the Lacuna story to our world. Hello.
Hello. It feels quite cool to be in the seat holding the microphone. You guys have been brilliant. This has been such a fun ride. We've loved working with you, and thanks for the support.
So I think it's worth just in this chat going back to the start and the origin story. So I'm mindful that there will be people who've dipped in and out of the daily shows and heard some of it, not other bits. But why did Lacuna need to be, and how has it been since you've decided to go all in?
Yeah, it's a bit of a weird one in that I come from a very bizarre corporate background of remote site medical and security evacuations and all sorts of things. And I'd stopped for a little while, thought I'd take a bit of a break, stalk my kids for a little while, see what they were up to. So basically just followed them around to their different sports ventures, which they were not very happy about. And my daughter came home one day and just said, "Mom, I played cricket today. Can I go play with my brother this weekend?" And you can probably tell from my accent, I didn't grow up with cricket. And I kind of thought, well, I didn't know girls played cricket. She said, "No, we just did it at school. It's really fun. I want to go." And so we went on the weekend. There are a bunch of girls playing. The first thing I noticed is she was a swimmer, a lot of the other athletes in her school were playing. It was like really sporty girls. It looked really fun. And they were taken in by it. And so as time went on and Caroline got better, she was about 11 years old at that point. And one day she was playing in an all-boys academy and went into bat, and they told her to put a box in. And she just was like, "A box? I don't have the bits." So like, that doesn't make any sense to me. And boys are chucking boxes around, everyone's laughing. And I just had this moment, I think probably as a mom, but also as a woman and as a business person, of like, how many girls would never come back? Caroline's got a little bit of sass to her and kind of just thought, well, I'm going to play harder because this is insane, and stood up to the coach. How many girls just say, "You know what, that's it. This is never going to work for me." And I at that point, the penny dropped, and I started making phone calls to old colleagues, like army doctors, saying, "Does a girl need to wear a box?" To where they had some very specific language around why a man might have thought they don't need a box. It's the bottom line. Geoff Archer is not bowling to an 11-year-old girl. She doesn't need a box. She doesn't have the bits. So long story short, that made no sense. And then I started calling around thinking, the Aussies have probably solved some girls' kit. And even the Aussies hadn't thought it through. So other than the international team, girls were still running around in boys' kit. And that just seemed really stupid. And here was one of the fastest growing sports for girls and women, a great game. And girls were falling out in droves because they just didn't feel welcome. And that just seemed stupid. So, what does an American woman with a corporate background in remote site medicine do? But just decide, I think I'll start a cricket brand. And that's what I did. And here we are.
Was it a matter of saying this ethically should exist, like there's a moral case for this, and so that's your driver? Or was it a case of saying there is a business opportunity here, or was it a bit of both? What was the
I think it was a bit of both. And I have to say, my first, if I call it my crusade, came to the more humanitarian. A lot of what I did was in public health, and what I saw was girls and women and some of the limitations around periods and things in different cultures around the world, and thinking sport is such an enabler, sport is a door opener. What if we could remove some of these barriers? And then one of my old colleagues who actually came from that world just said, "That's all well and good, you'll be out of money in 3 months. Like, there's also a commercial aspect to this." So I think it was a bit of my commercial bones rattling and saying, this is insane, no one's doing this is a massive market opportunity. And two, just knowing what sport can do. I played competitive golf growing up, and my dad used to saw golf clubs down for me. But I grew up in a country where the fact that my dad could go like hustle guys on the golf course because his little kid could hit the stew out of the ball, I was allowed, I was welcome. All the creepy old men were like, "Oh, she's cool, can she be on my team?" Whereas here, you've got girls getting boxes chucked at them and saying, "You're not welcome here." So It was a bit of a mishmash of moral indignation, commercial, and bloody mindedness.
And period complications. Like that's
Yeah.
a big part of this story, right? Because so much cricket is played in whites.
Yep.
There's a thing across the board where if you're somebody who doesn't have to deal with a certain challenge or limitation, you often don't even know that it exists, and so you would have the vast majority of men in cricket who wouldn't have considered that being a problem or a possibility. And particularly, I guess, when you're dealing with teenage girls who are very self-conscious about their bodies changing, puberty, all the rest of it, and it's like the worst nightmare almost would be being in the middle, like batting, spotlights on you, and then having to deal with a situation like that. So adapting, like having a range of clothing that could cope with that situation was a big part of what you ended up doing.
Yeah, I think there's a few things on that. The periods are the obvious part that come up. And certainly watching my daughter when she was making that awkward transition from little girl to teenager, and I'd see her go in her whites, and you could see like her little pink underwear underneath her trousers and think, oh God, she didn't think it through. To hearing absolutely horrific stories of girls. I mean, you hear stories from almost any woman of, oh my God, I started my period, it was in the middle of innings, I couldn't have left. That is a massive thing. It's really scarring. It's definitely a big deal. Whites are a real inhibitor on that. But more importantly, and you know, I can be a bit subversive on this, my feeling is you're proud to play in whites. If you want to play in whites, and if you go play in the Ashes, you want whites. You don't want to say, oh, I bleed, so I want dark colors. Period pants, that should be the equivalent of a box. That is equipment. That is, you bleed every month. Cricket doesn't allow for you to go to the bathroom. You need that. But I think there's also, when we were even doing early days of trying to get pictures and photos before we'd done our own photo shoots, almost every shot of a female cricketer, her stomach was hanging out, or there was something unflattering that you think, oh, I'm not going to use that picture, she looks awful. And that seems like a weird thing to think, but female athletes think about it just like anyone else. And if they're like, well, I mean, that was a good bowl, but look, I look really awful in that picture because the shirt doesn't come down, that's just, it all became a bit silly and a bit obvious.
Part of the impressive story that we've been telling is that your ambition to expand internationally, and I know that in our team, and Akshi's been working with you as well, independently of us, and talking to you about the opportunities for her to wear your clothing in cricket that she plays. But now that you've kind of beyond base camp in the UK, you do have that ambition to make sure that Lacuna clothes are available across the cricketing world.
Yeah, I mean, because of contacts and friends and people around the world, we've always, in a weird way, been global. We've always had people, again, back to my original interviews and asking people around about what their girls wear. Sean Flegler from Australia was one of my first contacts. So they've been wearing Lacuna since the start in the Flegler household. So, we've always had that ambition, but you've got to walk before you run. We needed to get it right. Where we've started to dip a toe, European cricket is actually weird and wonderful and exciting. And we had the opportunity to meet a lot of the European countries as well as a lot of the other associate nation cricket boards at the ICC meeting in Sri Lanka a few years ago. And what wound up from that, as well as some other meetings, is we're doing Cricket Switzerland right now. And that was the perfect example of associate nation cricket, where you have all of the spirit and love of the game without all kind of the drama and what gets everyone down in some of the bigger countries like England. It's just pure love of the game. And so probably because of my background of working globally, associate nation cricket is just, to me, so exciting. You just see so much energy. You see countries that, with a bit of money that might not go anywhere in England, you've got all of Thailand in a hotel, completely training together and smashing things. So it's exciting to see some of the countries that you wouldn't normally think of as cricket countries, and their women are awesome. We've seen them through Fair Break and other things, but to me, it's less about a commercial opportunity. I mean, that's there. It's more, we're about promoting the women's game, and there's nothing more exciting to me right now than watching female cricket emerge out of countries you wouldn't expect it to.
And so you feel like you can get involved, get in on the ground floor basically with these
I just
things
feel
as-
like these girls and women are facing the same barriers with less opportunity. And if clothing and kit and periods and all of these things are a barrier, you start looking at even some of the international teams where women are practically painted into their trousers if they're not a size 10. That's unacceptable. They're athletes. They're professional athletes. They need to be able to bend over and get a ball. So it's, again, back to that initial just irritation that you're watching real athletes not even have clothes that fit. And if there's an opportunity and it means that the girls play, then no one else is doing it. We might as well do it.
If I can generalize, I would say something I've observed with a range of men across my life is that if something's a problem and you bring it to their attention, often they might greet that with defensiveness. You do a lot of consultations with clubs, like you're talking about dealing with associate teams, but you're also dealing with small local clubs across the whole spectrum. You do direct consultations with players individually and with clubs to work out what they need. How does that go down? Like, do you have to sort of negotiate past a certain point of hostility sometimes to begin with, that, oh, you're going to come in here and tell us what to do? Or have people already got over that by the time that they've come to speak to you?
It's kind of a weird answer. I just don't think it's worth even thinking about. You're going to have doors slam in your face your whole life, whether you're a man or a woman. It doesn't really matter. Like, we could sit and lament, oh, there was this old dinosaur who said girls shouldn't play cricket. Well, there's 99 other men who are like, that's cool, my daughter plays. Yeah, let's give her stuff. I mean, my husband grew up as an only child, and he didn't even understand periods. He's like, I know they have them, but it's kind of a mystery. Wait, you don't know when you're going to bleed? And you don't know? I mean, like, okay, so now he knows. And now he's like, okay, yeah. So I think we can always find naysayers. That's just not really where we're focused. We are seeing a lot of people who just want things differently. I think the commercial model in cricket needs to change a bit, because there's still this, we're dealing with a lot of counties now, there's still this sense of what the men get, the women get. And they just kind of can't get their heads around making the commercial change to say they're not small men. And the big brands aren't doing that yet. And maybe we should work with a women's only brand who can work alongside. That the penny hasn't fully dropped. There's a few counties who are starting to look at that. It's just the money, they can't get their heads around it yet. I would say, yes, there's people who say, meh. But what I think we're starting to see is girls and women have been playing for a few years now on the grassroots level and in the county level. I think clubs are starting to see money's coming in. You know, you get girls and women in, maybe the boyfriends and husbands come, maybe if the women are playing, maybe they're working the tees, or we had one club up in Nottinghamshire say, Prosecco costs as much as beer. We're killing it, and we're seeing our club numbers grow, and we're seeing our clubs become more vibrant. There's also money to be had. If you're attracting people to your sport, you can get money. So I actually think there's a financial argument that says girls and women are good for cricket, and I think dwelling on the naysayers is probably a waste of time. It
does feel like the penny's dropped, though. I mean, maybe I'm being overly optimistic here, but even in the conversations we've been having through the podcast in the last couple of months, it feels like if you're an administrator at a club, or you're a club chair, or you're a director of cricket, or whatever it is, like, everybody knows now. We're beyond the point where ignorance is an excuse.
I agree, and I think it's because if you look at my daughter, who's now 19, and who did leave cricket because it just got too hard to get a good game, and so she found rowing and did that. But if you look at that cohort, the ones who were younger than her, who started at 5 or 6, they're really good. They didn't come in at 11 and it's like the boys are a bit better. They started with the boys, they're really good. The counties are good now, and I think anyone who's coming through watching those age groups and watching the pathway system here and going into the pro game, it's a very different landscape, and I just don't think it's a debate anymore on that.
I mean specifically around clothing, to be honest with you. I think anyone who has been engaging with this topic, they just know. Like, I was talking to a director of cricket last week about this, and the hurdle's been cleared, I think, on that awareness piece. I mean, of course, we've been doing that on the show, but I guess the next step now is they know they have to make sure they cater for their girls better. The next bit is ideally them, getting in touch with you and getting your team down there. And what does that look like in practice, by the way? Because I don't think we've really gone into what a consultation looks and feels like. Maybe that's a decent place for us to start moving to next, as far as what we talk about on the show and so on. I
mean, if you think about, we've taken most of the normal kit models and kind of chucked them out the window, because we just tried them and said, women and girls are just going to buy differently. What we've always done is said, part of this is getting the fit right and getting opportunity to let women and girls feel the kit, find what they love. So whether we're talking about pros on down to little girls, if you say what fits you, what are you going to be happy in, they want that. And so what we decided early on, you can send out a size guide. Any of us who've been involved in sport of any kind know size guides are, it's like voodoo. You know, you can't figure out what's what, then you pay for it. I still have, you know, racing suits when Caroline used to swim that cost probably 400 quid, never fit her, I couldn't send them back, you know, because the size guide doesn't
It
make
is one of the worst things in cricket, isn't it? I mean, the amount of times I've had to throw a dart at the dartboard and you're either swimming in your shirt or it's painted on.
Yeah,
it's
exactly.
never quite right.
And we all have cupboards full of it. So for us, a size guide's great, but how many people have a tape measure? What we really decided is, particularly with the game growing, people just want to feel part of it. So we've just always said we need to go and do fittings. So we do in-person fittings. We'll show up, let everyone try on samples. It winds up being fun. Every single time the teams have said that actually was one of the best bonding moments, because all of us got together as a team. We had fun. They were throwing shirts around. They had their drinks. They had their this. So we do that. People can choose what they want. And also there's always going to be either a shy teenager or a shy middle-aged woman who says, you can't fit me. You're not going to give me something, and who's kind of in the corner because they don't want anyone seeing it. And then they're like, you actually gave me something that I feel good in. So that's why we do it in person. And we've got in-house design so that everything is done bespoke with the team. Now, this does not make it more expensive. This does not make it harder. This does not make it slower. This does not make any of that. We turn it around. It's all made in Europe. It's all bespoke. It's turned around in 6 to 8 weeks. And it fits. And then you don't have a bunch of waste, and you didn't spend a bunch of money on stuff everyone hates. So we just found that's the model that works with this demographic, and it's working for us. And yeah, so if you get in touch with us, you will have us come visit. We've got a few salespeople around the country who do the same thing. So we're always tootling around.
This is already in the show notes, but as we wind down our conversation and go off together to have a drink at our book launch, I should say. We're recording this just before Geoff and I are about to go on stage tonight. What's the best way, if they want to be in your world, and bloody hell they should be, everything we've talked about and learnt around you, if you're running a club in England and you're not talking to Lacuna and you want to expand your girls and women's program, you're camping out, you've got to get inside the tent here, what's the best way of doing it?
Get in touch with us, teamwear at lacunasports.co.uk. Just drop us a line or come in our Instagram, which is Lacuna Sports UK. Get in touch. We can sort it. Super easy. And it can start with a top. It can start with a pair of trousers. It doesn't have to start with the whole kit and caboodle.
And if you don't find Lacuna, I will find you. Right, let's leave it there. Leigh Burns, you've been terrific to work with. Let's do it again for the Women's World Cup next year in England. How good's that going to be? A month of cricket right in the middle of summer. It's going to be an absolute joy, as it has been telling your story. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you, guys.